It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right. I told you this was going to be a earth-shaking segment this morning, and I meant it. And I'm going to tell you how easy it is for you to try to prove me wrong. And I dare you. I triple, quadruple, double, sextuple dog dare you to prove me wrong. Because I've got the empirical proof in their own words, and you can find it yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to go review a link. I want you to do your own due diligence and your own homework to understand exactly how far down the rabbit hole our nation has fallen and how everything associated to Obamacare is an enslavement exercise. What do you mean an enslavement exercise? It's just for us to be able to wipe our noses and get cold sores resolved. Really? Let me tell you what the real truth is. Ben Carson came out and said, like slavery, Obamacare robs you of your ability to control your own life, in a new article that's out there on CNS News. It's up on our website and on our Facebook page and up on Patriot FB. Go find it. Here's my comment on that. Obamacare and the subsequent abuses of privacy, your Fourth and Fifth Amendment violations, you know, the ones that say you have no privacy and then the one that makes you sign up under law and waive your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination because they're going to use this stuff against you for investigative, audit, and prosecution purposes. And it says that right in their language, not mine. So therefore, you are being forced by one law to give up your Fifth Amendment right that preceded the passage of the Obamacare Act by, 30,000 years of human history. But your Fourth and Fifth Amendment right violations and the lawless application of rules by HHS that parade as law. Parade as law. They're rules, but they carry the weight of law. And our Constitution very clearly and explicitly states, no law may be passed by anyone but Congress. You never gave Congress the permission to say, you have my limited power of attorney and you may hand it off to Kathleen Sebelius or her successor. You have my limited power of attorney to act on my behalf in my best interest, and I'm authorizing you to allow HHS to write 25,000 pages worth of rules that act as law against my best interest, that violate my privacy, violate my Fourth Amendment, my Fifth Amendment rights, that allow you to gather all this data about me, sell it to anyone you want, leak it to anyone you want, use it against me as a weapon. Who would do such a thing? What person would agree to that? But all of this, Obamacare and these subsequent abuses of privacy, all conflate to make Obamacare worse than slavery. Why can I say that? How dare I say that? Here comes the hate mail. Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because no one can escape it. You see, even in the time of slavery, some people escaped. Some were able to buy their freedom. Some were actually given their freedom by their masters. It was wrong. It was a terrible thing that we allowed to happen in our nation. But there were some people that escaped. They escaped from it, or they were born free, or they were able to obtain their freedom in some way. But under healthcare, folks, there is no freedom. There is no railroad to liberty. Why? Because no one can escape it. Every person touches the healthcare system and the medical field some point in time in their lifetime. It's impossible to not be touched by it, whether it's your birth itself, which almost always happens in a hospital, or the immunization records in order for you to be able to go to school. Every aspect of your life under Obamacare and the NSA and all this other data surveillance stuff makes your life now open to inspection by unelected, unknown, and unaccountable people. And partisans, worse yet. These are partisans. These aren't just people that are, going around like drone bees with one function, just accomplish the job, accomplish the job, accomplish the job. These are people who go around with the idea of accomplish the job at all tasks and at all costs, and no matter who I got to stomp on to get my political ideology through, I will accomplish the task at all. You see, there's a big difference between the mantra by the drone buzzer and the ideologue partisan. They will use this information to enslave you in ways that you can never imagine, number one, and number two, never escape from. At least when you were a physical slave, you had the option to everybody revolt or everybody escape, or even singularly escape. But now, every living, breathing human being, black, white, Asian, Christian, Muslim, everyone is under the domination and control of the state. How do I know that? Well, I'm going to read you the statement right out of their own mouth. I just pulled up, and here's how you can prove me. Here's how you can prove me right and prove yourself wrong about the good intentions you have for Obamacare. I just pulled this up from Missouri Department of Social Services. I encourage you to go to your own state and pull it up. What you're looking for is HIPAA privacy disclosure. HIPAA privacy disclosure or HIPAA privacy notice. Type that into any browser. I don't care what browser you use. I don't care what search engine you use. Type it into any browser. And then click through on the links. Now, what I did is I just went in and I typed in St. John's and I typed in Mercy and I printed a few of them out. It doesn't matter which St. John's and it doesn't matter which Mercy because every city's got at least one of each, right? Anyway, here's what it says. This is all about, and look at it and read it. And notice that you got to read the whole thing because the first one is always sounds so innocuous and so friendly. Well, we're going to use it for bill payment and so forth. Don't worry about it. But then you start getting to the more onerous stuff after you get bored. And the average person doesn't even have the reading skills to get through the first 5 paragraphs of this thing, much less 3 pages deep. Information handling. In our normal business operations, DSS may receive protected health information, which is information identifying you and which includes some indication of your medical condition, blah, 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 blah. A health information, and they can disclose this to medical professionals, health information networks about Medicaid eligibility, insurance companies, healthcare providers to pay claims, or hospitals, medical professionals, and health information networks for your treatment. Okay, so we all say, all right, I get it. If I go over to the doctor and he's a specialist and you sent me over there because I got a wart on my big toe, you got to make sure that the medical record goes so he knows what he's looking at. I get it. We all get it. But that's not what you need to worry about. Here's the part that you need to worry about. DSS follows the laws. I love the way they keep throwing the word law in here. Like they're just trying to scare the living excrement out of you. DSS follows the laws that tell us when we must. And they put the word must in italics, ladies and gentlemen, because the goal is to emphasize that word must. DSS follows the law that tells us when we must share health information and when we can share health information without your permission. Interesting. When we must share health information and when we can, at our discretion, share your health information without your permission. Here's the list. As required by law. There's that magic word again. Subject to limited restrictions. What restrictions are there? I'd like to know. What are the limiting ones? Are they limits based on my desires or based on government's alleged protections of me? Apparently, there are no protections for me. So, what are the limited restrictions that I have? I'd like to know. Inquiring minds, they want to know. 2, to public health authorities to report such things as contagious diseases. And now we all get the contagious disease part. See, that's thrown in there as the red herring to say, oh, okay, it's just contagious. Here comes. For birth, death, and immunization records. Boom, shakalaka laka. There we go. Nobody escapes from birth to death. And since everybody's got to be immunized by law, baby, boy, we got you from the earliest date. In fact, here, I don't care if you're born at home to a midwife. You cannot get into school without immunization records, so we got you cold. 3, to the police or military as required by law. Okay, what law? Well, we're not going to tell you that because the laws haven't all been written yet. We're just still working on the rules. To the military? I mean, I didn't know that, the lump on my knee had anything to do with the United States military because I'm way past service date and they probably couldn't care less. For court and administrative proceedings. There we go. Court and administrative proceedings. Well, here's the difference. A court means that you're actually operating under a court that is allegedly in place under the Constitution. But an administrative proceeding is something totally then again different. And here's what it is. Under an administrative proceeding, 1, you have no right to a jury trial. End of argument. If you didn't know that, that's your fault. You should have been listening to this show a long time ago. Number 1, you have no jury trial under administrative proceedings. Number 2, the judge almost invariably works for the agency, the administrative agency that is holding the proceeding. And so whose side do you think he's going to find on? Number 3, they set the rules in administrative proceedings, and therefore they can limit the amount of evidence that you can bring and present on your behalf in your defense. And they can hold you accountable, and they can punish you based on rules and regulations. There's no limits on the judge. He can do pretty much whatever he wants. And it doesn't even have to be a judge. It could just be some guy who's an administrator for an agency that says, we, the collective board, which is the Southern Justice Group, just us, we decide that you're not going to get that cancer treatment. Or we decide that, hey, you know what, we're going to send this information out to anybody we so choose. Or we're going to hold you accountable, and we're going to charge you, and we're going to penalize you. And if you don't, we're going to go out there and we're going to make sure that we get a chance to get the money from you through your paycheck, through a garnishment. And we got a judge standing right here who's already in agreement. Right, Judge? Uh-huh. That's right, says the judge. To health oversight authorities to see that government programs are being run properly. Well, whose advantage or benefit is that? Ask any one of the veterans who goes to the VA clinic, and I can guarantee you right now that none of those government programs are being run properly, and all of the information that they're gathering and collecting and sorting and spinning and dumping, it's not anything to do with the benefit of the patients. In fact, they've got secret lists. To the federal government to protect the country. Quote, comma, the president, comma, government workers, comma, and for other government programs. What programs? What workers? What is the protection of the country got to do with my medical records? You see, that outburst of anger shows that maybe you are unhinged. Maybe what we need is a medical evaluation of you so that we can pass that on. Maybe you're a threat to the nation. Maybe you're a threat to the president. Maybe you're a threat to a government worker. Maybe you are a threat to those other government programs. Well, you can't be a threat to a government program. Well, you know what I mean. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have not figured out by now the exact implications of everything that I've told you about here today, if you do not see the implications of a totalitarian, fascistic police state in control of everything that you touch, that you hear, that you see, that you buy, that you visit, that you look upon, Every word you hear, every doctor you see, every piece of information about you, every product you buy, every credit card swipe you make, every mile you travel. I've laid this challenge out now for 2 years. 2 years. And I'm going to lay it out again. I will give you a $100 debt. Well, it's a Federal Reserve note, but it's a debt. If you can give me one example of how all of this government surveillance, monitoring, and information gathering benefits you personally. And you've got to take into account the totality of all of it. Your email, your phone calls, your medical records, your purchases, your travels, who you talk to, where you talk to, who you wrote an email to, all of it. It's a $100 bet. Guess what? I've been offering that deal for over 2 years. I've not had a single taker yet. And if you want to write me, you can. It's Mike at americasvoicenow.org. Mike at Americas, that's a plural, americasvoicenow.org. Send me the email along with your arguments. I need logical, rational, well-reasoned arguments. I mean, I'm not going to take nonsense. You've got to give me the examples of how this will benefit, or example, just one, of how it will benefit you. I'll be more than happy to even discuss it with you privately or on the air. I'll debate it, and we'll let the audience decide if you get your $100 bill. I'm not a wealthy guy, but I'm pretty confident that between now and the time of my death, that $100 bill will never leave my possession. I ain't done. That's only one. Here's another one, and they get to free write these things. This is Mercy in Springfield, Mercy Hospital in Springfield. Every city's got one. For research, we may share your PHI, that's personal health information, with or without your permission. For research, we may share your PHI with researchers when their research has been approved by an institutional review board. Okay, so who's watching the watcher? Who's watching the institutional review board? How do we interview those people? How do we find out exactly what they're spending and whose money they're spending it on? How do we get an opportunity to understand what the criteria is for the IHB, the IRB, the Institutional Review Board? How do we have an opportunity to evaluate whether or not they're legitimately operating in our best interest or in some interest of the hospital, because you're going to get a grant? And so we can share the PHI with researchers when the research has been approved by an institutional review board and found by the IRB not to require patient permission. Oh, so hold on a minute. The institutional review board can make a determination in their sole and unilateral wisdom that I don't have to provide any permission. You're not asking me whether or not I have to? I mean, I don't have any say in this. You can make that decision on my behalf. You have the all-encompassing omnipotence and wisdom and omnipresence to know exactly whether or not you require patient permission. Can you find me someplace in the Constitution that justifies that authority in you? Then it goes on to say your permission is required for other types of research. They may also share your PHI without your permission. Again, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just like, boom. No, then you're not happy? Boom. Boom, 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 boom. Mercy may use or share PHI without your permission for the following purposes: public health activities, such as to report the occurrence of communicable diseases, to report information about victims of abuse, neglect, or domestic violence. Health oversight activities. That's broad. Such as Medicare and Medicaid program activities. Legal proceedings, such as in response to a subpoena or court order. Law enforcement purposes. Wow, that's so broad that, let's see, we could push California through that hole sideways. Such as with the police or other law enforcement officials who are pursuing a criminal suspect. I get it. You see, their argument there would be, well, you came in with a baseball bat stuck in the side of your head, and we got to find out who the guy is. Nobody would argue with that. But when you say law enforcement purposes, comma, such as, what that tells me is, and that's exactly their verbiage, not mine. What that tells me is you're giving me the least offensive example you can find so that I'll willingly sign this document. But it doesn't tell me the full gamut of what you can actually use it for. Medical examiners, coroners, and funeral directors. Well, if I'm dead, I really don't give a doggone what you got on me. Unless you guys pulled the trigger on me. For organ and tissue donation purposes. I get that. If I'm dead, again, you can have anything I got. To avert a serious health or safety threat. Well, that's pretty broad. What would that serious health or safety threat be? Please clarify for me, because I don't get it. To comply with workers' compensation laws. So-and-so makes a claim that they've been seeing too many patients, and your medical information is released to verify that, in fact, they did poke and prod you and give you a colonoscopy with their entire fist. With an entity legally authorized to assist in disaster relief efforts, such as the American Red Cross. But see, here again, when we see the such as clause, what that really means is we're giving you the least objectionable opportunity or example so that you will not balk and fight back. With an entity, any entity legally authorized based on whom's laws or based on rules and policy. See, because there's a big difference there. But see, they say, well, wait a minute. Once it's a rule or a policy, it automatically is now law. It's covered under law. Legally authorized to assist in disaster relief efforts, such as the American Red Cross. And, of course, who would argue with that? Like, let's say we had a flood or we had a tsunami or a tornado, and, of course, we want the Red Cross to come in and make sure everybody's got coffee and a blanket. But it doesn't cover FEMA and DHS. Or, of course it does, because they're, dagnabbit, they are legally authorized to assist in disaster relief efforts. And then here's the killer. This wraps up any holes that might have been out there for other purposes as required by law. Does this crap read to you like the guy at the end of the car commercial who says, it's made unintelligible on purpose. It's hidden from you because you're being scammed. I've got 1 minute left, and I've got 3 more of these, and I haven't even dipped into them. Other uses and disclosures that do not require your authorization. The St. John's healthcare system. Health oversight activities. Research purposes. To avoid harm. How broad is that? In order to avoid a serious threat to the health or safety of a person or the public, we may provide PHI to law enforcement personnel or persons able to prevent or lessen such harm. For specific government functions, we may disclose PHI of military personnel and veterans in certain situations, and we may disclose PHI for national security purposes, such as protecting the President of the United States and conducting intelligence operations. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to defend yourselves.